so wonderful to see everybody here today. I feel just suddenly a wave of gratitude to see your faces, and even if you're not showing your face on screen, to see your names and know that you're here. Well, we have a double Torah portion this week, Chukat and Balak. And in Parshat Chukat, the sister of Moses and Aaron, the singer, dancer, leader, prophet, Miriam, dies. And my name is Miriam. I'm named after the Miriam in the Torah, and I'm also named after my father's mother, Mary Margles, whose Hebrew name was Miriam. She died about a year before I was born, so I didn't know her. I know that she worked very hard in her life, and she struggled to make a living. I know that she was soft-spoken, that she was a gentle person. I know that she did her best to care for and support my dad. And I want to actually show a photo of her. This is my namesake, Miriam Mary. And as a way to begin our practice, I want to invite her presence to be here, the many Miriams to be here. And I want to ask you to invite the presence of an ancestor of yours, whose presence would be sweet, would be bolstering, would be a gift for this moment. And you might want to close your eyes for a second. This can be somebody you were close with and connected with, or someone you never met. It could be someone from your bloodline, direct ancestry, or someone you claim as part of your larger story, someone from Torah or history or culture. And if you can't think of someone specific, or if this feels difficult to open to, you can imagine the ancestor you've always wanted. That could be quite sweet. A presence, a source of love and connection and wisdom sitting right next to you. So whatever you're imagining, invite their presence to sit down right beside you. And see if you can evoke something specific about their presence. Maybe their face, the touch of their hand, maybe some quality that they beam, they radiate. See if you can let that drop into your heart and stay with you as I share a teaching. In Parshat Chukat, it says the Israelites arrived as a congregation at the wilderness of Zin on the first new moon, and the people stayed at Kadesh. Miriam died there and was buried there. V'lo haya mayim la'ida. There was no water. Talmud Ta'anit notes that juxtaposition of Miriam dying and suddenly there's no water teaches that the water that the Israelites had during all of their 40 years in the wilderness was because of Miriam. This is Miriam's well, a constant source of life-giving water that traveled with them in the wilderness because of her. And she dies and it's suddenly gone. It's suddenly gone. The people cry out in panic. Certainly in the desert, there's a reason to be panicked when there's no water. But maybe we can read this moment as a moment of grieving and crying out. Her death is an experience of such deep absence, and it feels like they have lost their source of life. No water. She dies, and they're afraid that they're going to die. And that fear, I think, is an important teacher for us that I want to explore, and how we can bolster ourselves in the face of absence. I'm not going to go into the whole story of Moses that unfolds because it's complicated, but basically, he hits a rock and water pours out. Miriam dies, there was no water, there's panic and absence, and the striking of a rock, and there is abundant water. Now, the Talmud asserts that the well returns by the merit of Moses and Aaron. This isn't a different source of water. It is the well itself. It is Miriam's well that is not actually gone, even though she has died. Where the Israelites think that they have lost Miriam, and they mistakenly think they have lost all the gifts that her presence brought into their lives, the life-giving source that she connected them with. But in fact, here it is, pouring out of the rock and sustaining them. This is Miriam's well now being surfaced through others. As you turn your attention again to evoke an ancestor you've invited, a close one or somebody you didn't know, a real person or somebody that you've imagined into your ancestry, can you feel a sense of present gift? Can you breathe with them? Across the lines of living and dying, can you feel a sense of the well that they have bequeathed you right in your body? Perhaps it brings a quality of softening. Perhaps it brings a quality of bolstering, of strength. See what might be present here for you. When your mind wanders, come back to evoking their sense of presence, their face, their touch, the sound of their voice, maybe, or just feeling a sense of breathing together. often when someone close to us dies, we meet profound absence. We acutely feel all the ways that they were present in our lives, and suddenly they're not. And it can feel like we have lost them, and that we have lost the goodness that they brought into our lives. And it can even feel like we have lost part of ourselves along with them. I think Torah is teaching us something profound about looking for the gifts that loved ones share with us in this life, that take on many garbs, many garments. We learn them, we meet them through specific people. But the gifts that we get to share, that are shared with us, are not actually personal, but are part of a vast source that we don't lose. Proverbs teaches, drink from your cistern, from your bowl, and flowing water from your well, from your be'er. And the Zohar explains that a cistern only contains gathered water. Its contents are limited by the size of the vessel that contains them, but a well is joined directly to the source of ever-flowing stream. And in the Torah, Miriam's presence embodied a way to access the divine, to access life source. As we share some silence together, I invite you to keep touching in to the specifics of a person you have been deeply connected with, or an ancestor. At one and the same time, to feel into the specific gifts of them that maybe is arising as a felt sense, not getting lost in the memories, but connecting to a sense of presence. And at the very same time, touching down into the sense of the deep well. What you got to know through them is part of the vast life source, alive as much in you as it was in them. can you remind yourself that you are not just this lifetime, that generations of loving and courage and living are in you, that you are part of them. That you drink from a deep well of sacred life that weaves us together. Later in the Parsha, there's a song to the well. I love that. They sing a song to the well, the Israelites. And it says, Az Yeshir Yisrael. Then Israel sang this song, Spring up, O well, sing to it. Umimidbar matana, and from the parched wilderness, a gift. The language is very similar to the song at the sea. 40 years earlier, when the Israelites came through and Miriam led them in song and dance. And now in her death and in the Israelites discovering a fresh surfacing of her well, they serenaded. So as a last moment in practice, if you can turn back in, again, connecting to the qualities, some aspect of a loved one who has died that actually lives in you in some way. A particular quality, a gesture. I touch the skin of my own hands, and I feel the veins that I remember touching on one of my grandmother's hands, different grandmother. But to this sense of presence across life and death, a gift from the wilderness. And I wonder if our last few breaths, few moments of practice can be like a song, a serenade to that quality, to that connection. When I die, if you need to weep, cry for someone walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around others and give them what you need to give me. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands and souls touch souls. You can love me most by sharing your simchas and multiplying your mitzvot. You can love me most by letting me live in your eyes and not on your mind. And when you say Kaddish for me, remember what our Torah teaches, that love doesn't die, people do. And when all that's left of love, and that when all that's left of me is love, give me away. Thank you for your practice, dear ones.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Miriam, for that beautiful practice. We seal this practice offering an opportunity for any of you who are in mourning or observing a yard site, remembering a loved one who has passed, or if it is your practice to participate in Kaddish, to do so. If you are not reciting Kaddish, you are invited to stay present and offer your compassion and love to those who are in mourning. If you are observing Kaddish, you are welcome to put the names of anyone who you are remembering in the chat. We'll share the words of Kaddish on our screen, and if you are reciting Kaddish, you are invited to unmute yourself and join me in body or in spirit as we rise to recite these words together. Yitkada,
Kadash, Rabbi, Kama, Debra, Yamlik, Day, Hey, Shemay,
Thank you again, Miriam, so much for that beautiful teaching and practice. As we close, we'll share again in the chat box the link to our website, where if anyone is able and moved, you're welcome to make a donation in support of the work of IJS. We are so grateful for your support and for all of you for being here together today and helping to create this beautiful community of practice. So for those who are leaving now, we wish you shalom, be well. We hope to see you again tomorrow at the same time. And those of you who would like to are welcome to stay on here to ask Miriam any questions or to share your reflection on today's practice in the chat box. So if you have a question for Rabbi Miriam, please just preempt your question with the word question in all caps in the chat so that we can make sure to see it. So Miriam, that was, wow, just such a beautiful and transportive practice. Thank you again. Thank you again.
My pleasure, my honor.
One question I have for you. It was so moving to me how you shared about Miriam, your grandmother, your namesake, and also being named for Miriam in the Torah. And I feel that Miriam in the Torah, Miriam Haneviah, Miriam the prophetess, is such an important person, character in our lineage, in our ancestry, in our sacred mythology. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit more to what you see as some of the important qualities of Miriam that come to life, both for you yourself carrying that name and also for all of us, for that inner Miriam Haneviah within us, what she brings, what her gifts are, what her contributions are to our spiritual path.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. What a great opportunity to talk about Miriam more. Well, I find there's so much that's interesting about her. We know from Torah that she took Moshe when Moses was born in the basket and set it down in the Nile to try to save him because all the baby boys were being killed. But she waited and watched. And then when Pharaoh's daughter brought Moses out of the water, Miriam had the wherewithal and really the audacity, the kind of sassiness to say, I have a wet nurse for Moses. If, I can make sure this baby is fed. And of course, she brought Moses back to his own mother. And so I just love that about her. There are other times that she really speaks up. She and Aaron both kind of confront Moses at a particular moment. So she ends up getting punished for it, but she speaks. She speaks up, and I value that very deeply about her. And maybe also I'll say, as somebody who loves to sing and dance as a deep form of creativity and expressiveness beyond words, the fact that she leads the women in song and dance at the edge of the sea, I adore. There's more to say about her, but maybe that's enough for now.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Gail asked about the well. Is the well a metaphor or actually water that followed the people? And I actually also had a question that came up about water. I know that Miriam in so many ways is associated with water, the well, and as you spoke, the Nile, and also her name, right? Miriam. And I know that you, the parting of the sea. And I know that you, Miriam, spend a lot of time deeply engaging with prayer and ritual in very expansive ways beyond also prayer as we often think about it, in the liturgy and the Siddur. And I wonder if you could share with us a little bit about water.
Mm,
Place of water and your relationship to water in our spiritual lives, in our practice, in ritual, in
mm.
prayer.
Beautiful. Well, first, maybe in terms of the question in the biblical framing, are we talking about real water or not? And the answer is yes.
Right.
um, that in a desert context, the presence or absence of water, of course, is a matter of life and death. And our commentators, particularly our Hasidic teachers, but also our classical sources, say that water is never just water. Water is Torah. Water, especially water embodied as a well, which I was sharing from the Zohar, that it is access to a source of water, like right down to its very source. It's not, as I was saying, like a cistern where water's just been accumulated and gathered, which of course is still life-giving. But every time Torah says that there's a well, we can flag, oh, that is access to the divine source right there. And those images resonate very deeply for me too, as somebody who loves swimming in lakes, cold, fresh Ontario lakes in particular. The sense of its vastness and that it's filled with abundant life, and is mysterious, and we're weightless there, is so evocative. Just as a few images, I think. And in many sources, water is Torah.
Mm.
So it's both divine life itself, and it is the expressions of divine insight and wisdom and imagery through Torah.
Beautiful. Thank you. So we have a question from Lori on the beautiful practice you offered us of ancestral connection and invoking the blessings of our ancestors. She says, I brought in my grandma Miriam, who was my safe place of life and protection in my childhood. She died a long and painful death via lung cancer. As I merge with her, I feel somehow that I should take in her illness to offload her pain, though I know she's free of physical pain and is now only life. How do we bring in only the good from our ancestors and not the pain or obligation?
What a rich and deep question. Thank you for that. I will say I have been loving this book called Die Wise, A Manifesto for Sanity and Soul by Stephen Jenkinson, who is a teacher and is often called a death doula. Profound teachings about how we consciously die with love and courage, and how we accompany those who are dying and continue to live in relationship with those who have died. And I included on the source sheet a quote from him where he talks about really encouraging people not to use the language of "I lost my loved one," but he said, "You didn't lose them. Don't lose them. Stay in connection. Keep talking to them. Keep listening for what they have to teach you. Keep offering what you have to give them. You lose your wallet, you lose your keys. Don't lose your loved one." So in response to the question about the pain that a loved one has experienced, I think there are ways that we can keep offering healing that isn't about taking it on, but is about continuing to direct our healing love in their direction. And I don't know about you, but I don't know what happens after we die. But I have, in my experiences as a rabbi for 15 years, a congregational rabbi, and being in the presence of dying and death, that I feel quite palpably that this physical existence is not the beginning or the end. So why not continue to extend our loving and our connection and receive it?
Amen. In the Jewish tradition, the practice of observing a yortzeit, of remembering a loved one on the anniversary of their passing, is so beautiful, such a beautiful practice of connection, and reciting the Mourner's Kaddish. And I wonder, Miriam, if you could share with us, are there any other practices that you engage in or that you have encountered and would recommend for people who are interested in really cultivating more of a practice around ancestral connection and kind of keeping that channel open?
Beautiful. There's so many rich practices. I love that the Amidah, every time, if we're connected to traditional Jewish practice and prayer, that every time we recite the Amidah prayer, we connect with the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, the God of Sarah, of Rebecca, of Rachel, of Leah. And I find that that is an ideal moment to pause and also name the God of my bubby, my grandma, my Zeta, to name other people and bring them in. We never pray alone. Even if we're in our home by ourselves, we are never praying alone. And why not actively, consciously bring in the presence and like to feel hands around us, on our backs, supporting our heads, in our breath, the strength and beauty and presence of the generations. I don't have my own children, but I live with my nephews and share a home with my sister and brother-in-law. And when we bless my nephews on Friday night and we put our hands on them, which you don't need to have children to do, you can extend to friends, to pets, to yourself as well. We also do so in the name of our ancestors. And there is another beautiful moment of recognizing we're channels of blessing, but we don't create blessing. We don't generate it, but we can open to it, to recognize how much we have received. It's unfathomable how much we have and continue to receive from those who came before us. But if we can bring in concrete moments, concrete people, then we start to widen that channel, and more of our ancestry, of our lineage, of the blessings that they were and they carried, can be present right now with us.
Amen. Loved what you just said, the kind of subtle difference between that acknowledgement that we ourselves are not the source of blessing, but that we can be channels for blessing. And when we can open ourselves in that way, almost get out of our own way, right? To really open to receive, how we can connect into that long chain, long channel of the blessing that has been carried forward generations.
Maybe one last quick thing, to use an expression from Yavila McCoy, an incredible Black Jewish teacher and guide. I don't know if I'll have her wording exactly, but she says, start becoming the ancestor you want to be. She says it even better, but think of yourself already as an ancestor. So, what does that mean in terms of what is yours to send forth ahead of you? So, we get to be the channels and receive blessing from those who came before us and be like a clear pane of glass,
Mhm.
shining, making sure that the glass is clean so we can shine it forth
Mhm.
others.
Amen. May we become the ancestors that we want to be. We are the future ancestors of generations to come. So beautiful. Thank you so much, Miriam. This sit was just so healing, as many people have said in the chat. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today, sending many blessings as we each go back into our day. And we hope to see you back here tomorrow. I'll be here with Mark, and we'll sit into Shabbat together with more inspiration from this week's Parsha. So many blessings.
Thank you so much, everyone.